When most people come to Paris, they think of this. Or this. When my dad comes to Paris, he thinks of this. My dad worked on wastewater systems for 40 years in Tucson, Arizona, where I grew up. As an engineer, he designed electrical power and control systems and instrumentation, like pumps to move wastewater for disposal and reuse. It's an increasingly important job everywhere, especially in the desert where water's a scarce resource.
It was interesting. And, the wastewater part of it didn't really bug me.
When he read about the Paris Sewer Museum in one of his engineering magazines, he talked about it for 2 years. I live in Paris, so I decided I had to go.
I can't think of another sewer museum anywhere.
It was eye-opening. Let's just say we all have a conflicting relationship with our own waste. The museum is in a former sewage facility. The smell hits you at the door. Exhibits focus on Paris's history of waste management. Before sewers, Parisians poured their own waste out of their windows. Victor Hugo was fascinated by sewers. He described them at length in his 1862 masterpiece, Les Misérables. The Paris sewers were constructed in the early 1800s, but until a renovation in the second half of the century, Hugo wrote, at times human waste flowed back into the goal of the city, and Paris had an aftertaste of its own sewage. Inspired by Hugo, tourists began visiting the Paris sewers during the 1867 World's Fair. Visitors used to take boat tours underground, drifting down a river of sludge. At the time, they didn't understand infectious disease and how it spreads. Apparently, people everywhere are fascinated by their own waste. My dad has his own stories about Tucson.
Some person got into the sewer. I don't know why or how, but he wound up in the sewer, and there's some pretty big pipes that go to the wastewater treatment plant. And he was probably a couple of miles away and got washed down the sewer, and there were several big drops, and he wound up near the wastewater treatment plant in a big vault that had a metal doors on the top. And he was knocking on the metal doors to get somebody's attention. Most of his clothes were ripped off because of the going down the pipe. And there was somebody heard him knocking and opened it up. I didn't get the feeling it was accidental. I think he was messing around and wound up kind of stuck.
In 1975, after sewers were closed to tourism for health reasons, the city opened this museum. My dad was surprised by the parallels he saw across the pond.
Going from the United States to, say, Paris, looking at the housing and electrical switches and outlets and stuff, there's quite a bit of difference. So I was kind of taken by the fact that the sewer thing was so similar.
I was intrigued by the suits sanitation workers wear as a shield from disease. They always carry a monitor that warns them when danger is in the air. Sewage can emit sudden peaks of heavy metals that can quickly kill a human. But sewage, life really, was much more dangerous before sewers. In the mid-19th century, thousands of Parisians died of cholera transmitted through unclean drinking water.
I think that sewage collection and treatment is important. I think it's vitally important, mostly because of the disease aspect of it. I mentioned that I've heard engineers doing that kind of thing have probably saved more lives than the whole medical profession. And you can kind of see how that would be the case because disease can be huge. Look at COVID, it affected just about everybody. But there are all sorts of bad diseases. I heard of an outbreak of cholera, I guess it was in Africa recently, because they don't have good treatment.
Somehow, I didn't think about the risks of sewage on my visit. Apparently, they didn't apply to me. Absorbed in filming the tunnels and pipes and sewage flowing beneath me, I placed my bag and coat on the ground. 20 minutes later, a museum employee suggested I collect my things and wipe everything down with sanitizer. When it rains a lot, these tunnels flood, he told me. The floors and walls are covered in residual sewage. I'd forgotten the privilege of sewers and how they keep our city healthy.
I think that people generally don't want to think about it. And, once it's gone, it's gone. Like it's a yucky job. Like they say, it may be shit to you, but it's bread and butter to me. If there is a misperception, that's kind of sums it up.